I was looking back through some pictures the other day. Got pictures on my portable hard drive that go back to 2004. And sometimes it's fun to go back and look at those pictures, right? I was coming through them, and there was a couple that kind of hit me. One was of my brother and I. We were riding dirt bikes. I don't even remember what year it was now, but it got me looking at it and thinking to myself, what was it about that night? I still remember that night. I still look back and I still remember that night, and it was a lot of fun. And we were smiling in the picture. We were laughing about it. It was a good day of riding, covered in mud and dirt and everything else. And if you didn't know it any better, it just looks like another normal afternoon or evening riding dirt bikes with your brother. But, I look at it now, and while I was there, yeah, it was fun, but I was exhausted. I was tired. But now I realize, that what seemed like it was normal back then, kind of became one of the good old days for me. And we've all heard somebody say that, right? Man, those were the good old days. Maybe it's your parents or your grandparents. I mean, heck, I've said it. Maybe you've said it. But here's what I realized. The funny thing about the good old days, nobody knows that they're actually living them while they're living them. While it's happening, you don't really realize that that's going to be the good old day. So we're going to talk about the good old days at the podcast tonight. Hope you like it. Life isn't lived in a highlight reel. Most of our lives are lived one day at a time, Monday through Friday, if you're working a regular Monday through Friday job. And then your evenings, usually with kids. If you got kids, young kids doing things, then you got your weekends. And you're busy. You're working. You're running errands. You're paying bills. The kids need to get to practice. And it's not just during the fall because we like our kids to be busy all the time. Keeps them out of trouble, right? So you're driving to practice all year long. Around here, we're fixing fences. Still got fences that need to be fixed, by the way. Taking the dog out, playing with him, letting him run around. You're making dinner, you're doing dishes, doing laundry. I mean, the list goes on and on. None of it feels historic. It just feels like a regular old Monday or Tuesday, right? But that's what the days look like, and that's why we're missing them. I can tell you, sitting here now, that 20 years ago, I wasn't thinking about, man, these might be the good old days. There's a song from Keith Urban, "The Days Go By," and they do. They sure as heck do. The days go by. Because our memories are kind of weird, You think back to your childhood or your younger adult years, and most of us don't remember every birthday or every Christmas gift that we get, but we got pictures of all of them. We've got pictures of all of those special occasions, but that's not really what we remember or what sticks with us. When you're thinking back to your kids, Everybody's got something different, but for me, I mean, I'll never forget riding my bike with my brothers all over Fair Oaks when we were growing up. All over Fair Oaks. We would learn how to ride them with the training wheels in the middle of the street in front of the house. I mean, we were on a cul-de-sac, so it wasn't like it was a busy street, but we learned how to ride on the street. Then we'd ride our bikes behind the house over to the school down there up Bannister behind the school. We made jumps behind the school. We built a tree fort that overlooked the road. I mean, those are the days you remember when you were kids, and we were working all the time. I mean, you talk about child labor. I'm telling you, we had it at our house. There was not a thing that got done that Dad needed to do that he didn't have the boys helping him with. I mean, they had 3 kids. They had 3 boys. Of course, we're going to help. Now, we lost a lot of Dad's tools doing that. And no doubt in my mind that part of those good old days when you were a kid, you hear your dad, why is my screwdriver missing? Where's my hammer? Where's my vice grips? And it's funny because he used to say, when he mowed the lawn, he'd walk around behind the mower with his bags on, his tool bags on. Because sure as heck, mowing the lawn, he's going to find those crescent wrenches or the channel locks or the screwdrivers while you're mowing the lawn. But yeah, that's the stuff you remember. The Saturday morning cartoons, Bugs Bunny and Yosemite Sam and those things. Or you remember Grandma and Grandpa's house at the sleepover. Nothing special about them. Just, seems like ordinary, everyday days when you're a kid. But somehow they became the good old days. Why is that? Why didn't we recognize it in the moment? Maybe because we were kids. We didn't know. All right, so you're not a kid, so now you're a young adult going to college, right? And there are people who I know consider the college days some of the good old days. Freedom, that first taste of freedom on your own. Making new friends, new roommates, new cities, new towns. Learning how to do what you need to do to survive by yourself. And in that moment, I guarantee you're not thinking these are the good old days. You're thinking, how the heck am I going to get Taco Bell for dinner next week when I got no money in the bank? My mom loved me. Your mom, I don't know what her deal is with you, but my mom loved me. And when I was at college, she would send me cookies, care packages. And in those cookies, under the second or third layer, Mom would always slip $100 bill in for me. $100. And it was, once every couple months, I'd get the care package while I was in the dorm. Because I was in the dorm, Mom felt bad for me, right? Because I was in the dorm. I was figuring it out. I was in the geeky dorm, so I was playing computer games with the dorm guys, but those are days that I look back on, and I don't have a single picture of them. Maybe that's because we didn't have cell phones with cameras on them, and nobody knew what the hell a selfie was back then. But I don't have a single picture of them because I didn't take pictures of that stuff. I didn't take pictures of those days. I was living it in the moment, and that's just it, right? You're there. You're living it in the moment. You're not worried about taking a picture of it so you can remember it. You got it right here in the old noggin, right? You'll never forget those days. And those are the ones that stick with you. But I can tell you exactly how excited those kids were when they got their first puppy. Or when they got, their first dirt bike when they were little. I mean, we had that little Yamaha 50 or 60 that we got when the kids were little, and they were ripping around that thing Christmas morning. They were ripping around the house on that thing, and you'll never forget those days. We do have pictures of that, though. Got pictures of that. They're in the photo album because we did not have digital pictures quite yet. We were on the cusp. When the kids were born, we were on the cusp of that stuff. Digital photography was just coming in. So we got a few of those on the old digital photo album. But yeah, I mean, those days are the things that you don't photograph that 9 times out of 10 you go back to being the good old days, You don't have the pictures of your dad mowing the lawn. Nobody's got a picture of you mowing the lawn when your kids are little. Or the dog being asleep on the porch. Or the kids arguing in the back seat. Nobody takes pictures or videos of that stuff. Or just a regular old dinner on a random weeknight after work. That mess in the garage while you're building something with your friends or your kids. You don't take pictures of that stuff. Those are the good old days, right? Sure as heck. I know you're sitting there and you're thinking about it, say, yeah, those were the good old days. Life was a little bit simpler back then, wasn't it? And ironically, those are the memories you love to revisit. You love going back there. I don't know about you, but I do. It's always the ones that are normal. The ones that you took it for granted while you were there. Life was just days going by. They were just days going by back then. And really, I'm living it now. And here's the thing with it. Just because they were the good old days doesn't mean you don't have good old days ahead still, or that you're not living on them right now. Because I look at it, and this is an exciting time for me right now. I mean, I'm working my ass off, harder than I've ever done in all the years I've done it. I'm probably working harder now than I ever have. But it's fun, and it's exciting. We got buildings that are being built, legacy stuff is happening. My inheritance from my kids and my family is at the point now that it's coming into shape. The company's growing. I'm recording this podcast. You can't tell me that you can't listen to this podcast and be thinking, King Roberto is going to look back on that and say that was the good old day. Working on the property here, developing what I call my ranch, and I say that kind of loosely. It's 6 acres, not really a ranch, but you know what? It's my ranch. It's our ranch, and I like our ranch. I like what it's coming into. But I gotta tell you, sometimes it just feels like you're chasing the next thing, the next project, the next deadline, putting out the next fire. What's the next problem that's going to happen? And you're always prepping for that. But one day I know that this is going to be a chapter that I'm going to miss. I'm going to miss these days. And I know it. And I knew it before I sat down and did this podcast and had the idea for the podcast. I try to live my life that way and enjoy the moments when they're the moments. And not because it's easy, but because right now life is so full. It's so full of everything. I was just talking about it with the Queen the other day. And our priorities shift now and then. And our priorities have shifted in the last 6 months or so. Because there's so much amazing opportunity in front of us. That we've shifted the way we look at things. We've shifted what's important a little bit to meld into what, is really exciting times for us. And that is what's going to make these the good old days. I know it. I just got back from camp. This was my 13th year of being an adult director at camp. And honestly, I'll tell you, there's some years that were, not the imprinted years. But that first year of camp, 13 years ago, will never cease sticking with me with some of the experiences we got there. Because that's where I saw a lot of the adults who are coming back around to being counselors now. That's where I saw them for the first time as campers. And then they came up and they were JCs. Some of them were directors, and now they're coming back around as adults. And you don't realize it then, but golly, you look back on it now and it's like, geez, remember how much fun that was? How much fun we had back then? Because there's a lot at camp. There's a lot of laughing. There's a lot of complaining about waking up. There's a lot of trading lanyards and starting lanyards and doing all that other stuff, And there's always the people who are trying to sneak the extra candy and stuff. And while they're living it, they're going to be 10, 11 years old back then. And now they're in their 20s and they look back and they see it now. And they come back around and they say, man, do you remember when we did that? They say, Gru, you remember when we did that? Yep, I do remember when you guys did that. I remember that year. It was a lot of fun. And they're going to tell the stories, right? They're going to tell them stories to their own kids. They're going to tell those stories to other JCs because they're back at camp, and they're going to share them. Because the counselors don't know it either, right? They don't know it. You got some new adults that are joining us at camp and some new JCs at camp who don't understand that all of that hard work they're doing for that week of camp, building up to camp, leading up to camp, they don't know that as they're exhausted at camp, running on nothing but caffeine, because that's what we do. Caffeine and red licorice, and that's it. It's caffeine, red licorice, and I gotta tell you, Pua, love you. The little chocolate covered caramels, boy, those might be giving the red vines a run for their money, but you're just trying to survive another day at camp most of the days, and then years later you look back and you laugh about it. Man, you remember when we didn't have to worry about bears coming through camp. Remember when we didn't have to worry about the staff not making enough food for everybody. Remember when those good old days, right? Good old days. So, and the ones that really get to me when you start looking back at them, I got the kids, and I'll go through the garage, and I'm a sucker. I'm a sentimentalist on a lot of stuff. My oldest daughter, though, is not. Holy crap. If it can be sold for $5, you're going to sell it for $5. It doesn't matter how special that Briar horse was that she got for Christmas that year. She was 9 years old. She needed that $5. But I'm a sentimentalist person myself. And when the kids are young, we're always saying that we can't wait for them to get older, can't wait for them to be grown up. Eventually you get to the point that I can't wait for them to be out of the house so I can be, we can be empty nesters, because that's just the way it goes when you're raising the kids. But then you walk through the garage and you see their old toys, right? You see the old board games that y'all used to play. And then you walk upstairs and the bedrooms are empty. And the house is quiet. And you didn't know that those noisy years were the good old days. You didn't know it. Because let's face it, nobody's got nostalgia about that mortgage that you were paying 15 years ago. It might have been a better interest rate. But nobody cares about that. Nobody remembers changing the diapers. Although there's a couple of memories of my son peeing on my wife, my first wife, when she was changing the diapers that, that's kind of memorable. It sticks with you. But you don't miss mowing the lawn, or remember mowing the lawn or changing the sprinklers or fixing the leaks or any of that. But we miss the people who were there while we were doing those little things. Because it was never really about the chores. It was about who we shared life with. And one of those pictures that gets me every time was Easter 2009. It's 3 days before my mom died. And it's a picture of the entire family together. Just another Easter. You wouldn't have thought to think that that was going to be the last one. That was going to be the good old days. Couldn't tell you what happened that Easter. It was over at my brother's house. No idea what we ate. No idea. No idea how everybody got along. Don't remember it hardly at all. But looking back at the picture, I know that's the last one I had with my mom. And it makes you think. And that's why I, kind of changed over the years of how I look at this stuff. And when you have, a traumatic life event like that, it will change your perception of life and living in the moment. But it's also the little things, right? You don't have to go on another vacation somewhere. You don't have to spend a bunch of money for it. You don't have to try to make memories anywhere. You just got to live in that moment. You just got to open your eyes while it's happening. Pause for just a second and take it in. Sit around that campfire with the friends just a minute longer. Yeah, you know where I'm going with that. Sit on the porch with somebody you love, drinking that cup of coffee, having that beer, having that soda, having a glass of water if that's your thing. Maybe just take one more picture of the kids playing. Take one more picture of your spouse or yourself. Take one more picture of whatever you're doing at that moment. Here's a big one, and I can't tell you how many times I see it, but put the damn phone down while you're at dinner. I've done it. I've stopped doing it, but I've done it. Put the phone down at dinner and pay attention to who you're having dinner with. Have a conversation with that person. Enjoy the company of that person. Put the damn phone down for a week and come to camp with me. Maybe listen to the stories that your parents tell you. Even if you've heard them all before, There's a story that you've heard 100 times over. Listen to it one more time with your grandpa. Let him talk to you. Listen to what he has to say. Spend another minute with him. Laugh a little bit longer, right? Because those good old days, they're not all behind you. Some of them are, you might have missed them. Because you weren't paying attention to the moments as they were being moments. You weren't paying attention to the moments as they were happening. You're so distracted with life and everything else. Go back to episode 1 of this season. What was it called? Just one more minute. Just one more minute. Don't be asking for just one more minute all the time. Those good old days, they're happening right now. They're happening right now. So maybe someday you'll wish you just can have one more regular old Wednesday night after work, or one more Tuesday in the middle of the week. Or maybe you're gonna say, I wish I had one more family dinner, or one more campfire that I sat around, or one more morning drinking coffee with that person on the porch, or even one more drive to work. It's just one more conversation. Because the trick isn't creating the good old days. The trick is recognizing them while you're still living them. Don't wait to be the person that says, I wish I had one more minute. I wish I had one more of whatever it is. Take the time while it's right there in front of you and live it. Royal decree for you. The good old days aren't built by extraordinary moments. They're built by ordinary days we don't realize we'll someday miss. So pay attention. Today may already be the memory you'll treasure tomorrow. Good old days are happening all around the world all the time. You just got to take the time to recognize them and enjoy them while they're happening. King Roberto coming to you from the King's Lair here. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, hit the like button. Give me a follow wherever you might be getting your podcast from. If you want to tell me that I suck or that I'm not the worst podcast that you've ever heard, great. Send me an email. Hit me on Twitter, X, whatever the hell it is. Instagram. Maybe you're watching on YouTube. Hey, YouTube viewers, you're awesome. But I need more of you. So go check it out. Stories are stories of my life and how I've lived it and how I'm living it now. And hopefully, they're good ones. With that, I'll see you, or maybe I'll just talk to you again next week. Goodbye.